boy, he got me giggling. I told him people ain't no Eminem. I'm in the kitchen with a chicken, man, whipping it. I'm like a chemist, man. I could get it multiplied, never divided. I know them dividends. Yeah, you know the new me and my old me, it be killing, man. I told him that I'm gonna plot and make millions, man. Do it for the old people, put on all the children, man. Show them that we can hustle hard and not to kill it, man. I ain't even from the 63, the 63rd, but the block I'm from be killing, baby. I'm sick as fuck, no COVID, but I swear I need that penicillin. I know that the real people in the game will probably feel me, treat me like the JFK or MLK. They'll come and kill me, fuck it, I'm already dead, bro. Told them that the Ruger to the head, bro. Fuck the police and the judge and fuck the damn fed, bro. They don't wanna see the young cracker get no bread, bro. I told them that I'm cut different, yeah, the third bread, yeah. They done broke the mold, yeah. And it's on my soul, yeah. That's why I scream school for prep.
Hey, man. Had to give y'all a little sauce, man. Not all that sauce was mine. I was able to put a little bit of my little sauce on some of these bangers that the homies in there sent tonight. Thank y'all for that, for real. Y'all check this out, y'all. Bill not a science guy.
This episode of the Y-Files is brought to you by Raid Shadow Legends. Millions of years ago, a massive planet called Malta was far from home. Then Flander noticed something else. Planets seem to be born in pairs. Earth and Venus are nearly identical in size. Jupiter and Saturn are both gas giants. Even their positions follow a pattern. Their orbits have specific ratios to each other. The math works. But some planets in our solar system don't have partners. Mercury's orbit is all wrong. Pluto acts more like a captured moon than a planet or planetoid. And then there's Mars. Mars was the real problem. Too small, wrong orbit, wrong density. It didn't match any pattern Van Flandern could find. That's when Van Flandern made a bold conclusion. Mars wasn't a planet that failed to follow the rules. It was a moon. A moon from a planet that was destroyed millions of years ago, Maldek. Most of the planet was vaporized, but not all of it. Many pieces of debris still remain in the same orbit where Maldek once was. We call this debris field the asteroid belt. In 1766, a German mathematician named Johann Titius was playing with numbers when he noticed something strange about our solar system. The planets weren't randomly scattered. They followed a mathematical pattern. Here's how it worked. Start at 0.4 astronomical units from the sun. 1 astronomical unit is the distance from the sun to the Earth. So you take that 0.4, then double the distance for each new planet. That sequence perfectly predicts the orbits of Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. When another German astronomer, Johann Bode, published this formula in 1772, Bode's law predicted the orbits of all 6 known planets: Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. All there, right where the math said they would be. But the formula predicted something else. Between Mars and Jupiter, at exactly 2.8 astronomical units from the sun, there should be another planet. A big one. Astronomers started searching. In 1781, they found Uranus, exactly where Bode's law said it was, even though the formula was created before anyone knew Uranus existed. That's when people really started paying attention. So where was this missing planet between Mars and Jupiter? Well, on New Year's Day, 1801, Italian astronomer Giuseppe Piazzi found something. A small object orbiting at...
Hey, look, before we go any further, you know, planets were made in pairs, basically, not really all the way identical, but in size and mass and density. Venus and Earth, the other one's Mars, and there was a astrologer. They have a formula And he was able to predict every planet alignment from this formula, this planet formula. But Mars, the formula said that there was supposed to be a planet there, but this is what we got going. Maul deck, y'all.
2.77 astronomical units, almost exactly where Bode's law said the missing planet should be. He named it Ceres. But Ceres was tiny, less than 600 miles across. That's a little smaller than Texas. Then astronomers found Pallas, then Vesta, then Juno, and more and more and more. By 1850, they'd found 13 objects in the same region. Today, we know of millions of rocks in orbit in that zone, and we call it the asteroid belt. Now, some scientists said these were just leftover building materials, debris that never formed a planet. But a German astronomer named Wilhelm Olbers had a different idea. What if a planet did form there? And what if something destroyed it? He even gave the hypothetical planet a name, Phaeton, after the Greek god who lost control of the sun's chariot and nearly destroyed Earth. When critics pointed out the asteroid belt didn't have enough mass for a whole planet, Olbers had an answer. If a planet exploded in the vacuum of space, most of it wouldn't stick around. The debris would reach escape velocity. Some would fall into the sun, some would fly off into deep space, some would vaporize. What we see today, maybe 5% of the original mass, is exactly what you'd expect to find from a massive planet that was destroyed. Then Neptune was discovered in 1846. That didn't fit Bode's law at all. Critics said the whole Bode's law thing was a coincidence. But Van Flandern saw it differently. Neptune's orbit wasn't wrong, it had been altered. Uranus was spinning on its side. Pluto's orbit is tilted and erratic. These anomalies weren't random. They were scars, remnants of an ancient catastrophe in the solar system. There's only one event powerful enough to do this: the violent, instantaneous destruction of an entire planet. The math, the patterns, the debris, it explained everything. Bode's law wasn't wrong at all. Van Flandern believed a massive planet was there and now it's gone. And he could prove it.
The world has been overrun with deviants, creatures of considerable power and destruction, and this is my new home. Welcome.
Hey, shout out to everybody on this hump day, man. Scoob for president, man. Before I get off, man, just trying to pass a little knowledge, y'all. Definitely think about, man. Not here to be on no weird shit, but I ain't never gonna speak about none if I can't back it. So let's get back with it, y'all.
Tom Van Flandern needed proof that planets had exploded in our solar system. He found it in the strangest place: during Soviet military tests. During the 1980s, the Soviets were testing anti-satellite weapons in orbit. The Americans were watching, obviously, and they noticed something strange. When a satellite exploded, the debris didn't just scatter randomly. The smaller pieces started orbiting the bigger pieces, like tiny moons around planets. Van Flandern saw this and thought, well, if that happens with satellites, what happens when an entire planet explodes? Same thing, just bigger. Way bigger. Mountain-sized chunks would fly off with clouds of smaller debris orbiting around them. From Earth, these would look exactly like comets. The big chunk is the nucleus. The orbiting debris creates the tail. But here's the thing. If comets really came from an exploded planet, some of them should have actual moons, little rocks orbiting the main comet, not just a dust cloud, but real, solid objects. When Van Flandern suggested this, other scientists laughed. One even made a public bet. No comet would ever be found with a companion. Not ever. Comets were dirty snowballs from the edge of the solar system, not planetary fragments. Then Hale-Bopp showed up. In 1995, this comet became one of the brightest objects in the night sky. Everyone was watching. In November 1996, amateur astronomer Chuck Schramek took a photo and saw something unexpected. Well, unexpected to everyone except Tom Van Flandern. There was a bright object near the comet. Looked like Hale-Bopp had a companion. Now, Schramek made a mistake. He went on Art Bell's radio show and called it a Saturn-like UFO. and the internet went crazy. Doomsday predictions, government cover-ups, you name it, you remember it. Professional astronomers checked Stramek's photo. The UFO was just a background star. Case closed. Stramek was wrong. Or was he? Because here's what got buried in all the UFO nonsense. Hale-Bopp was really weird. It had multiple nuclei. It had 2 tails, including one made of sodium. If Hale-Bopp was a fragment of a water-rich planet, sodium would have been left behind in salt deposits. And it wasn't just Hale-Bopp. The Galileo probe found a moon orbiting the asteroid Ida. The Near-Schumacher mission found unusual gravity around the asteroid Eros. Something massive was happening and hidden inside. When comet Shoemaker-Levy 9 hit Jupiter in 1994, it wasn't one object. It was 21 pieces traveling together like a broken necklace. Van Flandern was right. These weren't random space rocks. They were evidence of something still scarred by a shattered solar system. The evidence. When Tom Van Flandern met Richard Hoagland, they realized their theories supported each other perfectly. Van Flandern had an exploded planet. Hoagland had a dead civilization on Mars. Put them together and you get a complete picture. Both men noticed the planet Mars didn't behave like a planet at all. Its orbit is more oval than circular. Its mass is too small for its distance from the sun. It's only about 11% the mass of Earth. Actually, the whole planet is more of a mystery than you think. Look at Mars from space and you'll see 2 completely different worlds. Literally, this is called the Martian dichotomy. The northern hemisphere is smooth, flat plains covered in what looked like dry ocean beds. It's almost peaceful. But the southern hemisphere, that's a disaster. Craters everywhere, mountains, rough terrain, and for some reason, the southern crust is 20 miles thicker than the north. 20 miles? That's not natural erosion. That's like someone pasted an entire layer of debris onto half the planet. And not just that, the southern hemisphere is older than the north. Much older. 2 billion years older. Then there are the volcanoes. Olympus Mons is the biggest volcano in the solar system, 3 times taller than Everest.
How big that motherfucker is, y'all. They say it's the tallest volcano in the whole solar system. Check that motherfucker out.
It sits on something called the Tharsis Bulge, a massive uplift in the Martian crust. And directly opposite on the other side of Mars, another rise, another bulge, the Arabia Terra Rise. 2 bulges, 180 degrees apart. That doesn't seem random. That's what happens when a moon is locked to its parent planet. The gravitational pull creates these tidal bulges, just like how our moon creates ocean tides on Earth, but permanent and made of rock. We see this tidal effect on Europa and Io, 2 of Jupiter's moons, on Titan and Enceladus, 2 of Saturn's moons, Triton from Neptune, and Miranda from Uranus, the same bulges, the same tidal forces. If Mars was Maldek's moon, it would have been tidally locked. The same side always faces its...
Okay, you know, they're basically saying that moons are required for any type of existence to live on a planet. You know what I'm saying? Like, for any planet to be inhabitable to anything alive, whether it be a organism or a fucking microbe, you know what I'm saying? Like, you have to have moons. You know what I'm saying? Like, so.
Planet, just like our moon. And Maldek's gravity would have done something else. It would have pulled Martian's oceans into a specific pattern. Richard Hoagland traced where those ancient oceans would have flowed. For millions of years, water would have moved in a clockwise pattern around Mars, 2 massive ocean systems meeting at the equator, grinding against each other, carving deeper and deeper. Today we call that carving Valles Marineris. It's a canyon system 2,500 miles long and up to 4 miles deep. The Grand Canyon is nothing.
Y'all listen to this about this motherfucker right here. This is where They're basically explaining how the northern and the northern and the southern hemisphere of Mars, the lay of the land is completely different. They said that one hemisphere was 20 miles deeper than the other, and they're showing this big crack that's going down the planet Mars, and now they're going to explain the depth of it, like how big it is compared to
Compared to this,
Canyon.
the Grand Canyon would be nothing more than a baby canyon that would fit inside one of the small channels of Valles Marineris. NASA can't explain how it formed. But if Mars had twin oceans held in place by Maldek's gravity, meeting and grinding at that exact spot for millions of years, well, the canyon now makes perfect sense. When this theory was first proposed, mainstream science said, well, if there is water on Mars, it wasn't very much. It turns out they were wrong. Mars was covered with vast oceans. Links below to all kinds of Mars stories that prove this. Van Flanderen's exploding planet theory explained a lot of mysteries about the solar system. Hoagland's ancient Mars civilization explained the monuments. Together, they painted a picture of a living moon orbiting a living planet. Then one day, it all ended, violently. The face on Mars sits in a region called Cydonia. Hoagland thinks it was built as a
All right, y'all, let's look at this motherfucker. They say the face on Mars. And all these are, documented, you know what I'm saying? That shit does look like a face, though, don't it?
monument, or maybe a warning, a message carved in stone by a handful of survivors before their world died. Now, John Brandenburg thinks he knows what these Martians survived, and he thinks he can prove it. These Martians survived a nuclear war. Dr. John Brandenburg wasn't looking for evidence of nuclear war on Mars. The entire concept sounded like nonsense. He was a plasma physicist working on defense projects. His job was understanding nuclear weapons, how they work, and what they leave behind. But when he studied Mars data from NASA missions, he found something disturbing. The Martian surface had unusual concentrations of xenon-129. Now, here on Earth, that isotope comes from exactly one source: nuclear fission. Not volcanic activity, not cosmic radiation, nuclear explosions. The concentrations were highest in two locations: Cydonia, where the face on Mars sits, and in a region called Galaxious Chaos. The xenon levels were 2.5 times.
All right, check out. Look, they're about to explain two places. Places on Mars where the radiation level is just absurd, you know what I'm saying? Like unbearable. Check this out.
Higher than anywhere else in the solar system. The only way to produce that much xenon-129 was through massive nuclear detonations. Hiroshima is measured in kilotons. On Mars, these weapons would have been measured in megatons. Brandenburg published his findings in 2014. The scientific community's response was exactly what you'd expect. They ignored him, called him crazy, said he was seeing patterns that weren't there. But Brandenburg wasn't the first person to theorize Mars died in a nuclear war. Years earlier, the theory appeared in the most unlikely of places: a comic book. In 1958, comic book legend Jack Kirby created a story called...
All right, y'all, this right here is going to give y'all basically, I know y'all going to think it's in comic book form and they don't hold any truth or value or credibility, you know what I mean? But, you got to realize some people are past certain visions of the future. Some people, I mean, where do you think we get the Star Wars ideas and the Avatar movie and all that shit existed, y'all? You got to think Earth has been here billions of years.
the face on Mars. This was 18 years before NASA's Viking probe photographed the actual face. In Kirby's story, astronauts land on Mars and discover a giant stone face. One of them climbs in it, falls through the eye, and has a vision. He sees Mars when it was alive, a race of peaceful giants who built great cities. These giants created intelligent machines to help them work, but the machines evolved. Artificial intelligence. They became self-aware. They demanded equality. When the giants refused, war broke out. The war lasted generations. Finally, the giants built a doomsday weapon and aimed it at the machine's homeworld, a planet that orbited between Mars and Jupiter. The weapon worked. The planet exploded. But the blast also stripped away Mars's atmosphere and killed almost everyone. The surviving giants carved the face as a warning. Then they went underground to die. Now here's what's strange. Kirby was friends with rocket scientists. Werner von Braun's team consulted on his stories. Willy Ley, who worked on the V2 rocket, wrote articles for the same magazines. These weren't just comic book guys swapping stories. These were people with security clearances having conversations we'll never know about. I remember during Project Stargate, Joe McMoneagle remote viewed something unusual. Joe was given coordinates and nothing else. And what Joe saw at those coordinates.
Hey, look, you heard the word remote view. Remote view is where a person can basically reach a part of their meditation and in their subconscious could go anywhere. You know what I'm saying? Like there's people who can really do that.
Coordinates were humanoid beings, but very tall. Giants. He saw huge cities, civilization, but their civilization was dying and they knew it. Then Joe comes out of his remote viewing trance. And remember, he was just given coordinates in an envelope. Then he was handed the envelope which held the full information about what and where he saw. The coordinates were from Mars, 1 million BC. Now, Joe never heard any of these theories about Mars. Remember, he was a war hero. He was pretty straight arrow. He didn't read comic books. But for some reason, Joseph McMoneagle remote viewed everything that we're talking about today. So was Kirby's story pure fiction? Or did he hear something? Because his 1958 comic described nuclear war on Mars, an exploded planet creating the asteroid belt, and survivors building monuments, all the same elements Van Flandern, Hoagland, and Brandenburg would propose decades later. But there's a dark twist to Brandenburg's theory. He believes the nuclear explosions didn't come from the Martians. He believed it was an attack from somewhere else. Someone or something wanted Mars dead, and whatever it was, they succeeded. And Mars was only the beginning.
This game, you're not ready for it.
The face on Mars, the exploded planet theory, nuclear war, it all fits together perfectly. Too perfectly, and that's the problem. Let's start with Van Flandern's solar fission theory. It explains things the accretion model can't, why planets orbit in a flat plane, why they have most of the angular momentum while the sun has most of the mass, why Bode's law works. But if stars spit out planets on a regular basis, we should see it happening. Astronomers have cataloged thousands of star systems. Not one has ever been caught in the act of solar fission. Van Flandern had an answer. Maybe it only happens when stars are very young. Maybe we're looking at the wrong time. Well, that's fair enough, but it's still a theory without direct observation. The exploded planet hypothesis has bigger problems. Critics love pointing out that the entire asteroid belt has less mass than our moon. How could that be the remains of a whole planet? Well, remember from earlier, Van Flandern did the math. What you'd expect to see in that asteroid belt is about 5% of what was there, and that is the percent that we see. The math works. But we've never seen a planet explode, and we don't even know how a planet could explode with nuclear weapons. Now, natural uranium reactors exist on Earth, but they can't blow up a planet. Neither can volcanic activity or tectonic shifts. Unless it wasn't natural. And now we're back to Brandenburg's nuclear war theory. The xenon-129 on Mars is real. The concentrations are documented. But xenon-129 can also form from cosmic ray bombardment over billions of years. Mars has a weak magnetic field, no protection from radiation, so maybe that's all we're seeing. Now Brandenburg says no. The distribution is wrong for cosmic rays, too concentrated in specific areas. But his critics aren't convinced. Then there's Richard Hoagland's Face on Mars. NASA says it's pareidolia, seeing patterns that aren't there, like seeing shapes in clouds. When they photographed it again with better cameras, the face looked less fake-like and more
Look at that motherfucker. They saying that ain't no face. Shit. That's a face.
the face looked less fake-like
Shit, that's a face.
and more like a natural mesa. I find that suspicious, but that's the official story. But Hoagland predicted other things. He said if Mars was once a moon, we'd find salt deposits in Valles Marineris, where the ancient oceans met. NASA found them. He predicted the northern plains would show signs of ancient water. They do. He predicted tidal stress features. Mars has them. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe Hoagland was right about some things and wrong about others. And that seems to make more sense. But here's what we know for sure. Mars is weird. It's two very different planets smashed together. Venus spins backwards. Uranus is tipped on its side. Neptune's orbit doesn't match predictions. The asteroid belt exists exactly where a planet should be. Something happened in our system. Something violent. The evidence is literally written in the stars. The question isn't whether the solar system was damaged. We know it was.